the Minnesota Vikings get their guy. Adam Thielen will be returning home, playing in purple once again after the Vikings and Panthers were able to agree to a deal that sends the Panthers a 4th-round pick, sends the Vikings a conditional 7th-round pick, and a 5th-round pick in 2027. So the deal is done, and Thielen is returning back to Minnesota, where he wanted to be. And on this podcast, we're going to discuss if the Vikings Adam Thielen reunion will succeed or fail, because I have a very strong opinion about this. Let's bring up the bigger context of this trade. The Vikings needed a wide receiver that understood the system immediately. We don't have weeks for this thing to get figured out. We have 11 days. And Thielen, who played in Kevin O'Connell's system and threw the ball with J.J. McCarthy these past few off seasons, was a perfect fit for the Vikings and for this system, because Jefferson will be ready week 1. Jalen Naylor, unsure. Jordan Addison is out for the first 3 weeks of the season. And the Vikings need to start their season well, because their schedule is relatively easy to begin their season. You start off Monday night in Chicago, a very winnable game. And then the Vikings face off home versus the Atlanta Falcons, another very winnable game. And then they face off against the Cincinnati Bengals, another winnable. The first 5 weeks of the Vikings season are the most winnable games of the season. So you need to start out strong. If they don't start out strong, there is big cause for concern, because the first 5 weeks at Chicago, home versus Atlanta, home versus Cincinnati, you got the overseas game against Pittsburgh and Cleveland. The Vikings could start their season 5-0. Then they got the bye week in week 6. And then you've got Philadelphia, the Chargers, so home versus Philly on Sunday, on the road against the Chargers on Thursday. That's tough. And then at Detroit, home versus Baltimore. If the Vikings begin their season 2-3, and then they have this gauntlet from week 7 through week 10, that is not good, which makes this Adam Thielen trade all that more important, because the Vikings don't have weeks for a receiver to get acclimated and comfortable within the system. They need the guy ready to perform at a high level right now. And that's why they traded for Thielen. Yesterday, I said the Vikings should give up a 3rd for Thielen. Let's end this madness and give up a 3rd. They gave up a 4th. So I was wrong, but it wasn't that wrong. The Vikings got a 5th back, so it kind of corrects itself. But I still stand on that take I had yesterday, because you look back on the 3rd-round picks the Vikings have selected over the last 15 years. One of those guys can play. A couple of them were serviceable, Alexander Mattison and Jerick McKinnon, but only one could really play in Danielle Hunter. So I still stand that ground, that draft picks are so overrated. But the Vikings get Thielen and only give up a fourth. And it's perfect because he can slide into wide receiver 2 while Addison is out and Jalen Naylor is questionable to play. And hopefully the Vikings start out strong because they need to. And let's bring up and discuss if this is going to succeed or fail. Because right now, Adam Thielen, the Vikings organization, and the Vikings fan base, we are all in this all perfect match made in heaven. This is amazing. Everything is going to go seamless. This is the perfect fit. We got the nostalgic. We're romanticizing the past. Everything is great. Everything is wonderful. This is perfect. We're going to win a Super Bowl. Adam Thielen, Harrison Smith are going to walk out after the season with Lombardi trophies, and they're going to retire. But is that actually what's going to happen? Because we can get lost in our feelings. And what this podcast does better than any other podcast in the world is it does not get lost in its feelings. I am objective, so objective that sometimes I lose myself in my objectiveness and piss a lot of people off. But I remain objective and unbiased. Will Vikings succeed with Adam Thielen? Or would this reunion fail? What is a possibility is Adam Thielen could get hurt and it could just be a wash of a trade. I wouldn't consider that a failure. I would just consider that a poor circumstance. What is possible, though, is we all have this great mindset coming together. Adam Thielen, his wife, his kids, the Vikings organization, the family, everyone thinks this is going to be so great. And I lived in Washington, D.C. for 3 years. When I came back to Minnesota, I thought it was going to be so great. And everything was just going to be perfect. And it ended up great for me eventually. But at first, it was tough. Coming back to my home state, there was no welcome tour and people throwing a parade or whatever the case may be. You get a little nostalgic. You start romanticizing what it really was like. And then harsh reality hits and it's not quite as good as you remember it being. So that is possible that Adam Thielen is romanticizing what his time was like with the Vikings. And it might not live up to the expectations that he's set in his mind, which then could create a sense of bitterness and frustration with the Thielen family and with the Vikings organization. And that is certainly possible if the Vikings start 2-3. That's why the Vikings need to start good. They need to start good because their middle of the schedule is a gauntlet, and they need to start their season well because you need to keep everybody happy within the organization. And if the Thielens come back and the Vikings, who have these Super Bowl aspirations, stink, they're going to be bitter, and they're going to be pouting, and they're going to be frustrated. I can't help but think about another player in Vikings history that had a reunion. And that player was none other than Randy Moss. Pull your 84 jerseys out, Randy Moss. Randy Moss was traded to the Vikings in 2010 for a third-round pick. Exactly what I said the Vikings should give up for Thielen. And that reunion went as bad as anyone could have ever imagined. Because he gets traded, Moss goes to the press conference, pull your 84 jerseys out, Brett Favre is throwing him the ball. It's the one last chance the Vikings have at making a run at the playoffs. Moss, Harvin, AP, Brett Favre. The reunion lasted a few games, and it was a huge failure, catastrophic failure, and it was largely disappointing. Yet, when the trade went down, there was not one fan in existence that thought it could end in disaster. But it did. Even though I'm saying that, I think the Thielen trade is going to look different. Adam Thielen and the Vikings reunion is going to work. And the reason why is because we're not asking Adam Thielen to be Randy Moss in 2010. We wanted Moss to come in and basically save the team because to start the year, the Vikings were not very good. Childress and Favre weren't clicking. Favre had his own distractions with the Jets reporter and the dick pics. It traded Moss for a one last hurrah. Hopefully he can come in and save the team. And it just didn't work. We're asking Thielen to do something different. We're asking Thielen to run wide receiver 2 routes for 3 games, catch third down passes, and move the chains. We're not asking Adam Thielen to be the savior of the Vikings. We're asking Adam Thielen to play a small role within the Vikings' goals of accomplishing greatness this season. And it's also different for Adam Thielen than it was Randy Moss, because where was Randy Moss coming from? Randy Moss was coming from arguably the greatest culture and organization that has ever been established within the NFL circles. Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, the Patriots organization, the Patriot way. And then he gets traded to the Vikings. And who's running that ship? Brad Childress. You're going from top echelon, Fortune 500 company of the Patriots to an organization and a culture, an environment that is running out of business. And that's a big part why Randy Moss and the Vikings reunion didn't work out. Adam Thielen is going from a Carolina Panthers structure where the team would be lucky if it wins 9 games to a culture that has one of the brightest offensive minds as head coach, a quarterback that has a great head on his shoulders at the very least, and is surrounded by a Justin Jefferson, an offensive line, a defensive coordinator like Brian Flores, and a great running back duo in Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. So Adam Thielen, it is going to work. And it's going to be one of those reunions you look back on and remember happily. Because we look back on Randy Moss and it failed. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He lasted a few games and then the Vikings got rid of him. And it was one of those things where the fan base and organization and player was so excited for the return. And everyone hyped it up to be so amazing. So that's why I'm a little cautious about this Adam Thielen thing. But it's different. Adam Thielen is going to step in seamlessly within the Vikings organization. And this will work. This will work beautifully. So, get excited, Vikings fans, because the most objective podcast in the world just told you this is going to work. All right, let me tell you about 5-Star Bath Solutions of Minneapolis, because they transformed our bathroom in 48 hours, and that's their promise for you as well. 5-Star Bath Solutions of Minneapolis came in, discovered our disgusting bathroom filled with mold, and got rid of it all. New floor, new bathtub, new shower head, new surround, got rid of our mold, new countertops, vanity, mirror, and we went from a single to a double sink. 5-Star Bath Solutions of Minneapolis. Affordable transformations, beautiful solutions, free consultations, affordable payment plans. Contact 5-Star Bath Solutions of Minneapolis if you want your bathroom transformed in 48 hours. Don't wait 8 weeks. Contact 5-Star Bath Solutions of Minneapolis. Last take of the day revolves around J.J. McCarthy. And it revolves around McCarthy, but the rest of the Vikings team. One of the greatest strengths or assets to McCarthy this season is also his greatest weakness. Isn't that funny how that works? Our strengths are also our greatest weaknesses. If you're a hard worker and you love to just grind, maybe your greatest weakness is that you can't put it away. McCarthy's greatest strength this season is that the team surrounding him is perfect from top to bottom. Offensive line, running backs, receivers, defense. Everywhere on the Vikings roster, besides the corner position right now, which they will address, is stable. And that is also his greatest weakness, because if McCarthy steps in this season and isn't able to deliver consistency and isn't able to lead the Vikings to wins, we're going to find out really quickly that he can't play. Because you think about Bryce Young in his situation. He steps into Carolina and it's a disaster. From ownership to head coach to it just sucked, right? And if you're a quarterback that steps into a situation like that, there's a built-in excuse. Well, the head coach, well, the receivers, well, the owner. I was held back by all of these different things within this organization, and that's why I couldn't perform. McCarthy is so set up for success that if he doesn't perform well, there's not a single excuse that he can point to other than the fact that he just didn't play well enough. So something to look for this season and to pay attention to. Because if McCarthy steps in and sucks ass, then there's no fingers to point there's no fingers to really point at except for McCarthy himself, because the offensive line has been established. The running backs have been established. They bring in Adam Thielen for a fourth round pick. The defense has been established. There is no part of the Vikings roster that you can point to right now and say, well, that sucks. McCarthy's going to have to overcome that. Everything is set in place perfectly. And if he can't prove to really play well this season, well, it's not like you can go into the next offseason and say, well, we need this and we need... The Vikings roster is already practically perfect. So just something to pay attention to. There are no excuses for McCarthy this season. None whatsoever. Check out Hoagland Farms Beef, 952-491-1541. That's 952-491-1541 for the best rotationally grazed 100% grass-fed beef. You will not regret it. It's the best for you, and it's financially responsible. Check out Hoagland Farms Beef, 952-491-1541. You go to the store, you try to get a chuck roast or a steak, you're looking at $9 to $10 a pound. Hoagland Farms Beef has a flat rate of about $4 a pound for beef, chuck roast, steaks, and more. 952-491-1541. Tell Jared Tim sent you, and he'll give you 20% off. 20% off your first order. contact them today. 952-491-1541.